Bolton is a Song of Ice and Fire fan theory that claims that Roose Bolton is a long-lived being of some kind who periodically steals other people's identities by removing and magically wearing their skin. What? Yes. Let's get into it. So what do we know about Roose Bolton? He's the Lord of the Dreadfort, head of the old and powerful House Bolton, and now Warden of the North after betraying the Starks. He's the father of Ramsay Bolton, and used to have another trueborn son, Domeric, who, according to Roose, was an all-round top bloke until Ramsay killed his half-brother with poison. Allegedly. We know that Roose is manipulative, cold, ambitious, and utterly ruthless. We know he has an enthusiasm for flaying and leeches, and is generally a seriously creepy dude. But is he an ancient skin-stealing monster? The natural first reaction to this theory is to dismiss it as crazy. And it is crazy. But is it more crazy than dragons, 100-year-old psychic tree people, ice zombies and stone zombies, mind-controlled giant wolves, necromancy, 10-year winters, a magic horn that roasts your innards, accurate prophecies, resurrection, magical disguises, faceless men, mammoth-riding giants attacking a 700-foot-tall wall made of ice, and, if the show is to be believed, fireball-throwing skeleton monster-fighting elf children? Probably not. In fact, the Faceless Men of Braavos definitively showed that it is possible to magically wear someone else's skin as an effective disguise of the whole body. The men literally remove the skin of people's faces and wear them in a magical process that involves cutting their own face, resulting in a disguise that we've seen to be wholly convincing. It seems to be a form of blood magic, which we've seen on a number of times to be very real magic. So we know that something like this is possible, and if it's possible, you'd think the Boltons would know about it. They've been flaying people for centuries, so you'd think if anyone would discover this magic of blood and skin, they would. Hells, they could have gotten on a boat and found out from the Faceless Men themselves, like Arya does. They're practically neighbours with Braavos. In any case, it seems totally plausible that some kind of blood magic could be used by the Boltons to create convincing disguises from the skins of their flayed enemies, which, by the way, they already wear as cloaks. Roose Bolton, or the creature wearing Roose Bolton's skin, who for the sake of convenience we'll call Roose, could be doing this. What about the other part? Could Roose have been hopping between identities of centuries? Could he be immortal? Well, we certainly do have examples of immortal, or at least very long-lived creatures. In fact, one of these possibilities is particularly relevant. Roose Bolton is described as pale and cold, and almost all of his appearances in the books mention his strange, pale eyes. Roose Bolton resembles an other. But how could Roose Bolton be a White Walker, or something like one? Well, a possible explanation could be found in one of Old Nan's stories. Now, while we are yet to see Snarks or Grumpkins, a lot of what Old Nan says has been pretty accurate, like this stuff about wildlings. And remember that the others themselves were supposedly just a story. More and more of the supernatural and mythical is turning out to be real, so it seems reasonable that we can learn from Old Nan's stories. Anyway, the story goes that there was once a man who loved a woman with skin as white as the moon and eyes like blue stars. She's pretty clearly an other, or something of the sort, and the man, who Nan says might have been a Bolton, gave his seed and his soul to the woman. Perhaps a child was born of this union, and given the importance of blood in A Song of Ice and Fire and its granting of certain powers, the child of a man and an other might have a longer life, might have blue or otherwise strange eyes. He might just generally seem really creepy. Roose Bolton may be some kind of half-human, half-other, if not the Night's King himself, wearing human skin. So we have a possible explanation for the skin stealing, and a possible explanation for the longevity and eyes and creepiness. This really does seem possible. But is there any direct evidence? Not really. There is this passage. Roose Bolton's face is a pale grey mask, with 2 chips of dirty ice where his eyes should be. That fits perfectly with the theory, right? His skin is a mask, his eyes are ice. But it could be no more than poetic language to say that his face and eyes are emotionless and give nothing away, and are harsh. But there is more stuff that makes a lot of sense with this theory. Did you ever wonder why Roose puts up with, let alone legitimizes, the psychotic and unpredictable Ramsay? Roose implies that the only reason he doesn't kill Ramsay for murdering Domeric was because that would be kinslaying. Does the man who breaks guest right to betray and slaughter his allies really care about kinslaying? And if he needs an heir, couldn't he and Walder just have a child who's, less bad for PR? This theory gives Roose a reason to keep Ramsay around. Roose plans to take Ramsay's skin and identity. I mean, he'd need to change bodies eventually, right, so people don't get suspicious as Roose enters his 50s and 60s and onwards without visibly aging. Ramsay is a perfect candidate. Once legitimized, Ramsay becomes the heir of the Dreadfort and the North, and further, his eyes are said to look like Roose's. This is important, because if Ramsay's eyes suddenly change to Roose's distinctive white-like eyes, people could get suspicious. And we know from this passage that they must be very distinctive. Another possible meaning is that the other-like eyes indicate that Ramsay, like Roose, has some degree of otherness, and Roose wants to keep him around for that reason. Either way, if Roose has an interest in pale-eyed Ramsay being his heir, maybe Roose killed Domeric. I mean, poison hardly seems to be Ramsay's style, right? Maybe this bastard is innocent after all. Maybe Roose killed these other children as well for lacking his strange pale eyes. Another thing that this theory explains is Roose's use of leeches. We know from Cold Hands that once the heart has ceased to beat, a man's blood runs down into his extremities where it thickens and congeals, causing his hands and feet to swell up and turn as black as pudding. Roose says that frequent leechings are the secret of a long life. A man must purge himself of bad blood. He could be leeching to prevent this conspicuous condition from setting in. Alright, so I've got an idea of the theory. Let's quickly look at an objection to it. It could be argued that it's a bit inconsistent for Roose Bolton to be a supernatural evil monster rather than a human monster. A Song of Ice and Fire explores the nature and reality of human evil. It's not about good guys fighting evil monsters, it's about complex human beings who do wrong for love and to belong and to deal with their brokenness, and as a result of a harsh world, as well as for plain psychotic madness. Isn't that cheapened by having evil explained by making someone an inhuman monster? One problem with this argument is that we already have the others, right? There are supernatural, seemingly evil monsters in A Song of Ice and Fire. Roose is just another other, right? And perhaps not even that much of an evil one. Roose is cruel to his people, but that maintains a peaceful land, a quiet people. It works. And as for the Red Wedding, that ends a war that otherwise would have caused far more death and destruction and misery than ever occurs with the twins. We've never had a point of view chapter with Roose, or met other Roose, so we haven't had a chance to see things from his or its point of view. Perhaps this monster is more human than some of the humans we've seen in the song after all. The point is that things may be more complicated than they seem, and so it's probably too early to declare this theory inconsistent with the themes of A Song of Ice and Fire, and even if it is, who gives a grumpkin's ass, it's cool. Let's end there. Bolton does seem plausible, but there isn't any hugely compelling evidence either way, so all these vague hints could well amount to nothing more than a red or creepily pale herring. Either way, it's fun to think about. So thanks for watching this video, let me know what you want to see next.